I see the play button, but it's not playing.
Looks like it's right down there towards the middle.
I see it. It's just got to show up on. There we go. It's not the right one.
Yeah.
Let me go back. There we go.
That was so cool. Welcome, 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 everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the Power of Collaboration, where my co-host, Dr. Sheikah Houston, and I, Bijane Kareem, the Grant Guru, will provide tips on grant funding and helping authors and entrepreneurs connect to schools and parents to get more of their books or innovations into schools where they are needed. So while Dr. Houston gets us fed through to several different groups to bring more people in, I want to tell you a little bit more about BK International Education Consultancy before we bring up our guest for tonight and also talk more about that book trailer that you just saw. So, as I mentioned, my name is Bijane. I'm an educator, I'm an equity advocate, author, and founder of BK International Education Consultancy, where our social impact mission is to increase student access to innovative education. And we help support schools, nonprofits, edupreneurs, authors through grant writing, STEAM education coaching, training, self-paced courses, and toolkits, such as our award-winning, our very own book, 12 Quick Steps to Writing Winning Classroom Grants. This is our fame starter guide that's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And so tonight, we are featuring some speakers and some special authors to bring more resources to schools. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sheikah Houston so she can introduce herself and we can get on with tonight's broadcast.
Thank you for that introduction, Bijane, and good evening to everyone. As she stated, I'm Dr. Sheikah Houston. I'm the co-founder of Create and Educate LLC. We are a literary and consulting firm, and a part of what we do, my partner, Tammy Taylor, Dr. Tammy Taylor, now I got to start saying that.
Yay!
Yes, definitely.
Dr. Taylor!
um, Part of what we do is connect educators and parents to great resources. When we found ourselves in the throes of state sanctioned school improvement, our schools were failing at that time. So, one of the things that we found success in was being intentional about seeking out resources that matched our students' backgrounds. And a lot of those resources came from self published authors, like we're going to hear from today. So, in 1 year, we were able to improve our schools. So, we like to pay it forward by sharing a lot of the things that we did. And a part of that, again, is the resources that we found, like we're going to talk about tonight. So, my middle school moved up 2 report card grade levels in 1 year. Her elementary school moved up 3 report card grade levels in 1 year. And again, we continue to pay that forward and share that with other educators on our other 2 platforms, the Collaborative and the Real Academy, that takes place on Saturdays at 10:30. So, as Bijane stated, we have 2 wonderful guests with us this evening, and I'm going to bring up our first guest and allow her to introduce herself. Miss Ayana Ambrose, how are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, Bijane. Hello.
Hey, Ayana, so good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you all.
Thank you for being with us, and we're excited to have you. So, and I'm still trying to get us fed through. I don't know why my phone is going so slow. But Ayana, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to becoming a published author.
Yes, I am Ayana Mills Ambrose, also known as the Queen of Bestselling Books. I am an 18-time bestselling author. My books are bestselling in the US, the UK, Canada, Japan, France, India, and Europe. I actually became an author 3.5 years ago. I wrote a book called God and Hip Hop, a 21-day devotion inspired by hip hop to help a friend. And what I found was that so many others learned from the lessons in the book, and I received so many testimonies. So I kept writing, and now I have 18 plus books, and they're all books that are self-published by me through my company. I am a self-publishing consultant now as a result of becoming an author. And I'm an author turned author coach. I'm excited about this journey because I found my voice from writing. I was very quiet, and I learned how to put my pain on paper. So I believe so much in writing, in the things that you read. So that's why I love helping others to get their books out through my company. So my books are to help you reduce stress and increase your confidence so that you can show up as your best self.
And I love your testimony just because I know, the background of your books and your stories. So I think that what you've done by taking, your pain that you've talked about and putting it on paper, I think is commendable. It's therapeutic. It's your story is something that could help a lot of people. And how many times did you say over that you were best selling?
18 times.
All right. Come on.
Ooh, get it. Okay.
Thank you so much. And that's really the reason why, I do this is that, first of all, let me just say this. I really want to help the youth, young girls who look similar to me, because I didn't have a lot of influences where I grew up that were positive. But the good thing is I did have a family that really kind of believed in me. So I have a loving dysfunctional family. And, that was a blessing, because if I did not have those positive words from them, I would have been a mess. So that's why I want to help as many kids who come from less than perfect situations, which is pretty much everyone, to know that they can develop resilience and be successful later. So I always say that when I was 12 years old, I came home the first day of junior high school and my house was raided by the police for drugs. But when I was 22 years old, I had my first house built. So from 12 to 22 was a big transformation that I could not see at the age of 12. So I want to inspire other young brown girls and boys as well, because I'm a mother of boys, to develop the resilience that they need to keep an optimistic mindset and to keep going to make their mark on this world.
Well, I love it. And I commend you for what you do, because you help a lot of authors achieve that best-selling author status. And that it does make a difference. One thing that a lot of people may not know, as far as becoming a published author, about 79% of published authors are white. 7% are Latino or Hispanic, and only 5% are African American. So to be in a group that has published a book is an accomplishment. And so the book that you're here to talk about today, there's been a trending topic, a lot of backlash from the Disney movie, The Little Mermaid, where is it Halle Berry, the actress? Yes. Or the singer was cast, an African-American young lady who's only 22 years old. Just a lot of racist backlash on their YouTube page when that the trailer was produced or put out. And so because they thought that as a African American female, she should not have been the person cast for the movie. They thought it should be right a white female. So, you know, at 22 years old, Bijane and I were talking right before we came on. That's a lot for a young woman to process who probably hasn't, you know, fully developed her self-esteem.
Mhm.
So the fact that I remembered that you had a book featuring an African American mermaid, a children's book.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and it's so important. And tomorrow is actually, this book turns 2 years old tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. And you see Hermaid to Reign. Hermaid is a brown mermaid, you see.
Mhm.
And it's Hermaid to Reign is a girl's guide to greatness. And if you look in the background, you will see the White House. You will also see a crown on her head. You'll see a pen in her hand, a stethoscope around her neck.
Mhm.
Mermaid. She can be anything that she wants.
Right.
So this book was so necessary to me 2 years ago when I published it. That's when Kamala Harris was running for president and then vice president, you know, to let other brown girls know that you can go to the White House. And then the whole controversy started back then as well with the mermaid movie that they were making. You can be whatever it is you want to be, a doctor, you can be a writer. Like you said, I think you said 5% African American.
Mhm.
You know, that's why she has these things. She's representing all people who can be all things. You know, anyone can be anything with goals, optimism, and determination. And that is what this book is about.
I love that.
I do too. And you know, Disney and Hollywood, they do understand black dollars. And you know, Encanto brought in, I think it was $228 million globally.
Wow.
When you look at Black Panther, that was the 5th highest grossing movie, and it brought in I think it says $700 million. So, you know, they do understand that films that portray African Americans and that representation, it is not without making a profit. So they understand that part. I guess what we have to get past in the States and several other places in the world is that everyone has a right to be represented. It is not just a one group that's going to dominate certain things. So I'm glad that cultural relevancy is something that we are being more intentional about in schools, but also that we are seeing it more in literature and also in film.
Right.
Great points. Great point. And that brings me to a question for you, because not only did you write that book, you wrote several others. So is there if you could just think of one valuable tip, what tip would you offer an author, a budding author, serial author? What one tip would you offer?
Don't hold back.
Okay.
Do not hold back. Don't sugarcoat it. You get to use your voice how you want it. That's the advantage of a self-published author. Give it to them in a rawest form. Help someone else by telling your truth, the truth that needs to be told. Do not sugarcoat it.
I love that. I love
You
that.
put it on paper. It will take you longer to write if you're trying to make it a certain way or to appeal to certain, you know, to not sound a certain way, right? It will make it difficult for you to write it. Be your authentic self and write it. Put it on paper. Don't sugarcoat it. Write it out, edit it, get it edited, and put it out. Because if it's in you, there's a reason why. And there are people who are looking for it. They're Googling it. You know, what you know how to do and who you are. They're trying to develop that same confidence. So it's your responsibility to get your message out, put it on paper, and make a difference.
I love that you said that, because one of the great ways to put out your voice uncensored is to self-publish. So,
Mhm.
and all of us here have have experience with self-publishing, and you are a publisher and author,
Yes.
coach for authors. So, y'all
Mhm.
check out Ayana. Y'all check out Ayana for her book and
Thank
her
you.
coaching services.
Thank you so much. Yes, I can be found at bestsellingbook.info, bestsellingbook.info, and I do consultations, writing, and publishing. So,
Right. Get it. Get it. Get it. And help support others. I love that.
mhm.
And just thinking
Definitely.
about, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chica.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, so and thinking about helping to support other authors, especially authors of color, to self-publish, we know that also comes with some expenses, right? And
Yes.
so one thing that I help support, not only educators be able to tap into funding so they're not paying out of pocket for supplies, but also helping authors to do the same thing. And
Yes.
so what I love about your Hermaid book that you, A Girl's Guide to Greatness. I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
That tagline, yes, yes, Hermaid to Brain, A Girl's Guide to Greatness, is
Mhm.
that is so in time with, I would say, social emotional learning for schools. So
Yeah.
thinking about how you can help support build children's identity, their self-awareness, their self-love, um, and it's culturally relevant. I mean, that would be a great addition to libraries, school libraries, public libraries across the U.S. And there's also grant funding out there to help authors to be able to do so, either in the production phase or to help get your books into school. Because as we know, the foundational piece of books is being able to read, practice your literacy, and also stretch your imagination. And that's what schools envision and endeavor to do as well. So there's funding out there for you to expand your reach with.
Very interested in it, and it's actually what I'm working on now. So it's great to meet you and to hear more about it.
Okay, so we got to talk then. We'll talk.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm a publishing consultant, so
Okay.
I help them to retain all their royalty payments
See,
Mhm.
and learn the business of being an author.
see, and that's
Mhm.
what we need to know, right? Not just
Mhm.
right. It's one thing to, like you say, get your voice out there, but
Yes.
also the business side of it, so you can protect your intellectual property and your royalties. Yes, I love
Right.
that.
Definitely. Well, we are going to make sure that we put the link to your book so that people can purchase it from hermaidbook.com. I'm going to put that in the comments so everyone can see it. And as Bijane stated, it definitely would be a great addition to all classroom libraries. And because of everything going on right now with the movie, it would be something that would be very relevant for students and even to have that conversation in class about making sure things are inclusive and why that's important.
Mhm.
So thank you. Are there any other things that you want to tell us before we put you backstage? And we know you may have to go, but if you can hang out, you can. But if not, we understand.
Yeah. Just that it's important to not worry about how you sound, how you look,
Mhm.
what others think. Just do it. Go.
Mhm.
Make a difference. And that's what I want to say, because the best part about being an author are the testimonials that you get.
Mhm. That's
So
true.
thank you so
And
much for
you,
having me. I am Ayana Mills Ambrose, and I can be found at bestsellingbook.info. And I
Thank
look
you,
forward to
Ayana.
seeing you.
Thank you for all your work and what you do and continue to do. Thank you,
Thank
thank you,
you
thank
so
you.
much. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so we're going to bring up our next guest, Mr. Robert Horton from Backstage.
Yes. How can you top that? That was amazing. Like, she's had 18 books. I got to get my book game up, right?
She's done a lot of books, and Radical Woman was one that she didn't talk about, but I did the forward to one of those editions of her book. So awesome testimonies in those books, and like she said, just helping people turn pain into purpose.
Love that.
So welcome, Mr. Horton. How are you?
Hey,
I'm good. Thank you. How you feel?
Doing well. Thank you.
well,
Sure.
amazing,
Sure.
amazing. So I hear some good things about your book too.
Okay.
Multiple books too, right? Serial author as well, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're a self-publisher, I hear.
Well, I have a publisher,
Okay.
Truth Book Publishing. I'm from Springfield and they're out of Jacksonville, Illinois.
I have family. I grew up in St. Louis now, so I have
Yeah.
family in the Midwest in Springfield as
Yeah.
well.
So I'm just 100 miles from St. Louis. Yes.
Okay, excellent.
So Peter, what is Peter's last name? His YouTube channel is P English. He did a review of Fame. So we're going to just play a few minutes of that.
Okay, sure.
Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel review of Fame by Robert and Horton. This is a poetry book that I find heartful. It is encouraging. It asks words that are mostly centered on the condition of the human being. And that is why I consider it a sort of poem that is particularly for human. It is intrinsically centered on humanity. It is very philosophical. Some of the poems there aims at communicating, impacting knowledge to us as human beings. It is didactic in certain aspects. It is instructive in certain aspects. It is educative and it has a sort of information, wise word to communicate. And I love poems that are able to pull me in as a reader. I love poems that are extremely philosophical. I love poems that I will read and I will gain knowledge from. That's what I experienced. That's what happened to me when I read through Robert's Fame. It is full of life-saving information that are quite very amazing, something that I haven't really come about when it comes to poem. And I feel so excited talking about this book. From the titular poem itself, that's Fame, which actually have a sort of a line and stanza that is extremely centered on what you need to know in order to get fame. The distractions that we need to avoid if you like a life full of fame, and the path to destiny, the obstacles encountered alongside. And there's a way the line and stanza was written. It was written in a way that I could fuel it. It was written in a way that I could like, oh yeah, this information are powerful. This is the kind of information I think people would love to know about. And I so much love it because I'm a poet and I love poetry that are able to give me information. I love the fact that I'm not just reading a poem for pleasure, but I'm able to learn something in the course of reading it. I'm able to learn something, the poem is able to speak to me. And that's a trait that I find quite amazing whenever I'm reading poetry. And I found that in Fame by Robert L. Horton.
So, and I think that the fact that Peter is another poet and that he thought so highly of your book, I thought was a great compliment because I've actually reviewed a book for him and his poetry is good.
Yes.
So for him to say those things about your book Fame, I thought was really complimentary.
It was. It made me feel some type of way. It makes me feel some type of way now for sure. That's cool. That's real cool. That's cool.
And so, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background, and we can start off talking about Fame?
Yes. So I am Robert Horton, born and raised in Springfield, Illinois. I really got started with poetry, because of my brother. My brother Fred, he is, the original poet. And so, I was a dude that I didn't want to do anything educational, nothing. I just wasn't interested in learning, nothing. I just was into other things. And, like my brother was, he was a straight A student, very dutiful to his studies, no nonsense. And he's been very consistent with that all of his life. And so, I remember one Saturday out just playing basketball, just having a good time. And like, we needed like another person. Mm-hmm. And so I ran in the house to see if Fred wanted to play. And he was reading, writing and studying. And I was like, man, what are you doing? He was like, Bob, I'm writing a poem. And I was like, wow. So like, that was the first time I ever heard the word. And so, and then years later, I just kind of subsequently, just picked it up, and I just been writing basically, just ever since a kid. I would say like when I was 15 is like when I wrote my first real poem. It's out of struggle, out of hardship, out of feelings, out of everything, so it was like my diary. And they just turned into poems because like everything that I heard, everything that I wrote, it rhymed. And so, I just, found out that, okay, I'm actually writing poems, so that's how basically, I got started, with poetry.
And Fame is one of the books that I purchased for the African American males at the middle school. And I had a group of students, and because our school was underperforming at that time, we were looking for things, like I stated earlier, that were culturally relevant. And with poetry, when students have problems or deficiencies with reading, poetry is a good way to engage them in reading, because it makes them feel like they have accomplished something where they finish a piece and they're able to connect to it by it being culturally relevant without them feeling bad about them not having finished a novel. So it gives them those small successes that builds their confidence, that's needed to help them want to continue to learn how to read. So the group of young men that I used to read with, if I missed a day or if I had a meeting, they would run me down. Miss Houston, where are you at? You didn't come get us. Aren't we going to read today? So I would be in trouble if I missed a day. So I would have to let them know, hey, I'm not going to come get you today. I got a meeting. And but they really looked forward to it. And the quotes that were at the bottom, and then some of the quotes like by Tupac, of course, and people that they recognized were things that made it relevant for them and pulled them in.
Sure.
So if you are an educator or a parent and your children, you need to help them with reading or get them more engaged. And a lot of times that's a good way to get, especially our boys, more engaged in reading. And then, a lot of times they don't take to poetry well. So when you say that it's written by an African-American male, when you mention Tupac and Nipsey that you have quoted, that is what draws them in.
Exactly.
And so your other 3 books, tell us about those, because you actually have 4.
Right on. Okay, so like when Release came out in 2015. And so that was a book that, oh wow. Okay, so like I used to be a over the road truck driver and in my 20s. I mean, I'm 51 now, so when I was
we have to celebrate everything these days, okay?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. So I was like 20, went to truck driving school when I was 24, went over the road when I was 25. And so that's when I started really writing poems. I mean, you can imagine driving from New York to California, Florida, to Minnesota, just cross country. My mind just didn't do anything but think and write. And so the poems just kept piling up in my 20s, and then more in my 30s, and then more in my 40s. And so I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote for decades. And, my poor wife, she was like, what are you going to do with all these poems? I mean, they were everywhere. And so I was like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get them off the floor. I'm going to get them and I'm going to put them in a binder. And I did. So I took like hundreds of poems and I put them in this big, thick blue binder. And so the binder set for years, you know.
Mhm.
And so she's like, what are you gonna do with this binder? And so it's like, wow. So one day, Dr. Cornell West, he's a friend of mine. He came and spoke at the Springfield Urban League. And so after he spoke, I got a chance to meet him. And he was sharing words with me, words that I just so impactful, so profound that they're here, you know, in my heart. And I never forgot his words. And so I had another friend of mine, his name was John James. Now, John James has been a lifelong friend. And so all the time, he was like, so Robert, how's your poetry coming? Where's your book? I was like, my book? I was like, I'm not writing no book. And it's like,
planting that seed, planting that
Right.
seed.
yeah, and that went on
Exactly.
for years and years and years. And so when Dr. West came to Springfield and spoke, and then he shared his words with me, and then John James just, you know, in my ear asked me, where's my book that night? And I was like, you know what? Look, man, you're not ever going to have to ask me about my book ever again in life. And I think that was like December 14th.
Mhm.
And I looked him in his eye that night and I said, James, I give you my word as a man. Next year, I'll have a book. And so poems that span 3 decades.
Wow.
After I told him that declaration, 4 months later, release came out. And so that set the standard for everything that I'm ever going to write. So you got 3 decades of poems in release. And then, you know, everybody wanted to know like how, yes, release. So everybody wanted to know like how I got started writing poetry. So I was like, I need to be able to, because I got tired of telling people, well, it's my brother, it's my brother, it's my brother. So I said, Bob, what you need to do, man, is you need to write the forward. And I did. And so I always wanted to pay homage to my brother for showing me the way. I didn't know how I was going to celebrate him. And so I was like, just write the forward and then dedicate the book to your brother and then explain in the forward how he got you started. And so that's what I did in Miscellaneous Pieces. So this book is dedicated to my brother Fred, and there's a forward inside that explains, you know, how he was instrumental in getting me on the track to poetry. And as far as fame is concerned, so my daughter, my youngest daughter, my dear, I wrote a, I don't know if it was a children's book, a novel, play. I don't know. I wrote something. And so we were acting out the characters. And Amaya was just so happy. I mean, it's a really elaborate story about this young girl wanting to change the world. And it was kind of based off of Amaya. And so I wrote it like in one day. And I had all these characters, and I'm gonna publish it. It's called, the title of the book is called Olivia's New Day. I don't know when that's coming out, but it's done. Well, anyway, after I got finished writing it, me and the family, we all acted out the characters. And so Amaya started dancing around the house and happy. And she's like, Daddy, 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 we're going to be famous one day. We're going to be famous. And I was like, fame. I was like, okay. And so I kind of just put that on the back burner, but I started writing poems. And as the poems began to pile up, like every 10th poem, there was a reference to fame. I would write like 10 more. Here comes fame. 10 more. Here comes fame. So fame was the underlying theme in all these poems I was writing. So I was like, well, maybe I ought to name my next book Fame. And so that's how Fame came about. And I dedicated Fame to my daughter Amaya and to the great city of Chicago. And as far as Imagine is concerned, released 2015, Miscellaneous Pieces 2017, Fame 2020. Now after Fame, I was really done. I didn't want to do poetry anymore. I was really tired of it. Just didn't want to do it no more. So I started writing poems, but I was posting them on my Facebook page. I had no intention on writing another book. But people kept asking me about a poetry. It's like, when's your next book come? I was like, I'm not writing another book. Like, every time I turn around, I get a call or somebody come out of the house. They're like, Bob. I was like, what is? I'm like, I'm not writing another book. And so I just kept writing poems, but I didn't have any intentions on putting them in a book. So I started putting them on Facebook. And so I got hurt on my job, and I was really down and depressed and really hurting. And my Aunt Renee called me when I was at my lowest moment in life. And her words really struck a chord. And she was like, I see all these poems you're posting on Facebook. You need to put them in a book. And I was like, no, Aunt Renee, I'm not going to put them in a book. That's why I'm putting them on Facebook, because I'm not going to put them in a book. She's like, no, you really need to really reconsider. You need to write another book. And I was like, no, that's not what my heart wants to do. I'm not in it. If I was going to do that, Aunt Renee, I wouldn't put them on Facebook. She's like, no, you're not listening. You need to put them in a book. And I was like, okay. So her words were in my head. And then there were other people, asking, like, Robert, where's your book? And I was like, oh, wow. Then somebody else, like, your book. So I was like, okay. So what I did was I took the poems that I wrote and that were on my Facebook page. I put them in Imagine, and I wrote, like, I don't know, 50 or 60 more. And so now we have Imagine.
That's this one.
Yes.
I love that. So we just need to stay on you so we can get this next book that you had that's going to come out, right? We just got to harass you, keep emailing you.
The Bible talks about warring the king. Somebody was doing something and he kept warring them, and then the king, gave him his way. If you want anything done from anybody, just worry them, and, and it will happen. So yes, but I'm real thankful to be able to be in a position, to have 4 books, and that they mean something, to other people. So yes.
And in school, I didn't like poetry. I didn't like poetry until I got probably to college. And I know that it was because it was culturally relevant. It was Langston Hughes, but I still wasn't like a big poetry person. But I do have all 4 of your books, and I do like your work. So that's a testament to a person who doesn't really read poetry like that.
Wow. But with your cultural relevance, though, right?
That makes a difference. So from Imagine, it says featuring Chucks and Pearls and Black Girl Magic. Are you going to read that for us?
Certainly. Okay, so this is a poem that I wrote for Amanda Gorman. She was the inaugural poet. And so I wanted to, do something special for her to commemorate, her being an inaugural poet. And so I came up with this piece called Chucks and Pearls and Black Girl Magic. And it goes like this. Chucks and pearls for all the fine ladies and pretty little girls whose presence is felt all around the world. You epitomize Black girl magic. Dreams feed your self-esteem, and excellence is your habit. What the world needs, you possess, blessed and highly favored with a nation to address. Her time has come. She is bold without fear, rose to the occasion like the sun, and her message was clear. It is time for her story, appointed for this day. For America to reach its glory, Black women will lead the way. And so, like, at the bottom of like my poems always like have a quote or a scripture. And at the bottom of this, it says, God is with her. She will not fall. Psalms 46:5.
Right. Yes. Talking about greatness all around. I love the theme between the 2 authors that we had tonight, right? Black Girl Magic, Girls Guide to Greatness. I'm here for all of it.
Yeah.
I'm here for all of it.
Yeah, for sure.
You're on mute, Dr. Houston.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And sharing your wisdom with us and your poetry. Is there any tip or words of wisdom that you would like to give any poets or authors that are aspiring?
Keep writing. You know, I was on with Angela last night, and her last words to me was, Robert, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what, just keep writing. And I've heard that same phrase for a very long time. Strangers have told me this. So I'm like getting the same word like over and over and over again. It's like, wow, okay. So to anybody, so I'm gonna give them what was given to me. So I would encourage every listener, every serial writer, or every potential budding writer to keep writing. That's the key.
Excellent.
Yes, definitely. Thank you again. And I'm going to put your link where people can purchase Fame in the comments from Amazon. And if they would like any of your other books, what do they need to do?
They can send me an email, PRESHOME, the number 4, education @yahoo.com, Press Home for Education @yahoo.com. And I had a website, themoodypoet.com, but it's, I guess I guess you could say it's under construction. It's I have to revamp it. I wanted to make some changes with it and start over. So I'm gonna get a new, domain name. I already have it. And so when I get my money right and and find someone who can put it together the way that I envision it, then it'll be back up. But right now, just an email, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you again. And good evening to Miss Dot McKeever Jeter, who is a former principal and principal coach. She's also from Illinois. I don't know how far her city is.
I think Calumet, I think that's up by the Chicago area, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I'm 3 hours from Chicago and an hour and a half from St. Louis. I'm like right in the middle.
That's right.
Well, thank you again. I'm going to put you backstage and we're going to close out the show. So thank you again.
My pleasure.
So like you said, Bijane, we have had 2 phenomenal guests with similar messages and themes.
I love that. And excellent opportunities for them to be able to grant to get those books in the schools. We need more books like that in the schools. Just like you said, me too. I wasn't a fan of the poetry that was given to me to read in school. But if it was like that, if it was like Fame or the Hermeg book, I'm sure I would have gravitated toward it. So we definitely need to see these books in the school system, public library, things of that nature. And you all actually do a great job with your module on how to get books into schools so that authors know how to navigate the Da Vinci Code and what's for in order to be able to be a vendor and to be able to increase their readership and get it in front of kids that look like us.
Thank you for bringing it up. That's why I brought up the website. So one of the ways that we help authors and educators is with our newsletter. So if you are an author or a published author and you have something that you would like to connect with parents or educators, you can fill out the form that's on our website. I'm going to put it in the chat in just a moment. But these are the newsletters that we send out to our email list of educators. So it has summer reading resources. It has grief resources here. Everyone that comes on, we list you and we add a new newsletter. And so if you are a featured author, we also link your interview here on the website with me and with Bijane and I. And so that way the educators can also use it for an instructional tool. A lot of times we use author's purpose as one of our standards in schools when we're teaching literature and poetry or, whatever we're doing as a literary text. But as Bijane mentioned, the other things that we have, this one, Conducting Business with Schools, is the module course created by Create and Educate. And what Tammy and I saw was that there wasn't a lot of equity around getting self-published authors into schools. A lot of times educators are very traditional, so we order from the same catalogs that we receive. And of course, those catalogs don't have self-published authors, and a lot of times they don't have a lot of culturally relevant selections.
Correct.
So when we had to go think outside of the box, we had to do something different than what we had done. So for self-published authors to be able to connect better with schools, there are certain things that you need to know about the curriculum and how things go with schools, with purchasing orders, with how we do literature circles. So that's what we explain in our module series, and really just help educators and the authors connect better with the educators and what we do at the school level. And then Bijane helps educators and authors with her grants. So her resources are also listed on the website. And again, I'm going to put that in the chat. So whether you're an educator or an author, those are things that we can definitely help you with. So any closing words, Bijane?
The main thing is we appreciate all the authors, all the time that it took to be a self-published author, changing the game and changing those statistics that you shared earlier, Dr. Houston, about the only 4.8% of self-published authors are Black. So we here are helping to promote and change that narrative, because as you know, and as you experience and as I experienced as a person who was a student and then also as an educator, culturally relevancy is important. And so we want to be able to get a variety of diverse books, not only in the hands of kids that look like us, but who don't look like us as well, so that we don't have more instances of what's happened with that Disney movie.
Exactly. And so culturally relevancy plays a big part in both of those things that you just mentioned. So I'm glad that you said that it's not just for people of color, it's for everyone. And sometimes it is the difference maker in whether or not we get children to engage in school, because children aren't traditional like we were when we went to school. They're not compliant. They want to know why something is important. And if you don't have a good enough answer, sometimes it's just not enough to engage them. So seeing themselves, learning about their culture, those are things that definitely draw them in.
Well, thank you all tonight. It's always a pleasure co-hosting with you, Dr. Houston.
And you as well. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next time. Good night.